Okay, we'll call our meeting to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Opperly?
Here.
Barton?
Here.
Betteridge?
Here.
Jones? Shook?
Here.
Spar?
Here.
Warren? Chairman, we have four.
Good. Okay, we'll proceed. And could we have the approval of the minutes, please?
Chairman, I move that the minutes from November 25th be approved as presented.
Okay, do we have a
I'll
second?
second.
Second? Okay.
Barton?
Yes.
Betteridge?
Yes.
Opperly?
Yes.
Shook?
Yes.
Spar?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, would you like to make a statement?
Sure.
Please.
Tonight, we have a public hearing being held pursuant to published notice. Any person wishing to address the zoning board will be sworn in by our court reporter and will give their testimony under oath or affirmation. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the Zoning Board of Appeals will make its recommendation. 4 yes votes are required to obtain the affirmative recommendation of the zoning board. For a variation, the zoning board's task is to determine whether an applicant meets certain legal requirements. The variation procedure is not intended to evaluate whether a proposed variance is or is not a good idea. The particular requirements are enumerated in the village code, and each of those must be found to have been satisfied by the zoning board for the zoning board to be able to vote in the affirmative on a particular variation. Unless the zoning board finds that all these criteria are met, the zoning board cannot by law grant the applicant a variance.
Okay. Those who wish to present tonight, could you please be sworn in?
Steve, if you want to come and be sworn in up front.
Raise your right hand, please. You solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Read your name and address, please.
Steve Dietz. I'm with Millennium Professional Services at 850 North Main Street.
Okay. Could you kind of go over the case, what you want?
Yeah. The property we have there is the old Roker Cabinet Building, and that property served us fantastic up until this point. And you know, our business has been very fortunate the last couple of years to experience quite a bit of growth, and we've used everything that had been a paved parking lot or already a gravel storage area around the building thus far to stage our materials, our trucks and whatnot. We do own quite a bit of unimproved ground between us and the next building owned by Mr. Lang. And as we're looking for more of a storage area to expand our business and to continue to be as efficient as we can, we want to get rid of that grass area and use some asphalt millings to kind of create a little bit of an all-weather surface that we can stage trailers, construction equipment, and other various materials. So as we looked into doing that, the different the setbacks, was working with the village staff, and the current setback requirement for that is 60 feet from the right-of-way. Looking to our neighbors on either side and how all the property and the adjacent properties in the area are used, we saw that there would be an opportunity to ask for a variance just to stay consistent with what's going on in that area. And so we met with village staff and kind of came up with a working plan that we thought might be mutually agreeable to everyone. And that's what we're here to ask for, a variance of the setback requirement off of right-of-way. And then with the property line, I think everybody has some sort of a drawing that we had submitted in working with Roger, we've agreed to, there is a gas easement, utility easement between our property, or that's actually on our property, between us and Mr. Lang. And we've agreed to stay back 5 foot off of our property line for any type of improvement, so that if the village has to come in to work on that gas main, they're not digging through anything. There won't be any materials stored there or anything of that nature.
Okay, and you're talking about a fence. Are you having a fence or not?
So far, we've proposed a fence, a privacy fence up front, a 6 foot. It's not going to be a gated, secure area. We don't necessarily feel that securing it with entry is necessarily warranted. So it's more of a sight block, to make sure that it's not visually a nuisance. Even just today, I talked with Roger and proposed the idea of, if not a chain link fence with screening on it, maybe we could work with the village and come up with some landscape. We designed the improvement at Lighthouse Automotive, and the way they were able to, in the back of their lot, we used some different plantings, to provide a sight screen, and actually use more of a environmental sight screen rather than just a chain link fence with screening. It might make it look a little better. So right now, it's, I guess, up to the village whether we would proceed with that or a fence. I mean, we're completely fine with putting up a chain link fence with a visual sight block along the right of way, at the required setback. But we're also currently proposing to maybe plant some, evergreens that get 6 to 8 foot tall, very tightly, spaced, so that as you drive by, it provides a sight screen as well.
Would these evergreens be in front of the fence then, so you would not see the fence or not?
Well, if the fence was there, or if the evergreens were there wouldn't be a fence.
Okay.
It does twofold. I mean, if we put the fence there, we'll also be, meeting our proper landscape points anyway, whether there's a fence there or not. If we can not put a fence and then use the evergreens as a visual sight block, then it kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone. We continue to improve with the landscaping, and it provides a sight block.
I see. We have comments from the board. Would they have to comment on this?
The request for petitions specifically says install 6 foot chain link fence. I think we need to narrow it down, which it's going to be if you're going to put a fence up.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it was going to be a chain link, if it's going to be a fence, it will be a chain link fence with screening on it. And that we're fine moving forward with that. It's just through communications here recently, the thought came as, would it be okay on the sight screen to use evergreens to actually be a little more less industrious, provide a greener sight block rather than just chain link fence. I think the bigger question or what we're asking for a variation is the setback, whether it's the setback of the chain link fence or the setback of the evergreens that would provide that sight block, that we're asking for 35 foot from right of way versus the required 60.
Yeah. I would like the evergreens myself. I think it would look better than just a chain link, but that's my opinion.
And that's, we just kind of were kicking it around today a little bit as
Right.
we were talking about this, and it kind of came up because, like I said, we designed the landscaping, the engineering for Lighthouse there, and actually used that, and everybody seemed very positive about it, so we kind of thought we'd float that idea out there. Like I say, it says chain link fence, and we're totally fine with doing that, but like I said, the variation is more of the setback of whatever it is, the sight screen, whether it's evergreens or a chain link with.
Steve, how'd you arrive at 35 feet? I mean, I don't know what everybody else is along there. I mean, they're not all at 60 or.
Right. Most of the buildings are actually closer than that, but in improving the lot, we had to create a detention basin. So by the time we figured out the detention calculations and creating the basin and and then working our way back, you don't want to put your sight screen through the bottom of the basin.
Right.
So by the time we sized the basin and come up on the backside, 35 feet seemed to be about, a good starting point for, that would be the closest we would get.
To that basin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Using millings is okay, then it doesn't have to be paved for a storage area, is that?
Right, the storage area can be
Right.
dust-free. That's
Okay.
what it's, yeah.
So, Roger, I have a question. Have variances been given to the neighboring properties for farther than what they're asking for?
Well, all these buildings were built I don't know how
Oh,
long
okay.
ago, but they've been there for longer than I've been around, and
So they're farther back than what
Yeah.
this, yeah, okay.
Are you planning on any landscaping or fence along the frontage on North Main?
That'd be the screening.
That'd be the
That's what
screening.
he's
That's what we're talking about, is
Yeah.
the landscaping and.
Right, but a clarification, it's not just the side and the back, you're also talking about the front.
Yes. Yeah, that's actually specifically what we're talking about, the setback on the front of the North Main Street frontage, yes.
To the one issue that came up that I suppose I want to jump in on is what, by granting the variance, what you're giving them permission to do is put in the fence as requested in the storage area. They wouldn't be required to put in the fence, just as they wouldn't be required to put in the storage area. Whether they screen it with a chain link fence or with evergreens, one, they wouldn't need a variance for evergreens to put in that location, I wouldn't believe under your code. And second, would not be of substance to the variation request. The specific request they asked for and what's in front of you would be the chain link fence, but if they decided not to do that, that wouldn't violate the variance if granted. And if they decide to go with evergreens, they wouldn't have to come back before you.
Right.
Right. What's some of any other comments from the board?
I'm good.
are we looking at, Steve, you
Yeah.
didn't mention, are you gonna do that in the rear as well, or is he gonna put the fence in the rear?
Well, don't believe there's a requirement.
Yeah, we didn't talk about the rear.
Right. Right now, we're looking at leaving the rear open. This is
Okay.
more of just a visual on the frontage along Main Street.
The only thing on the rear, it would have maybe been nice, because we were talking about doing the fence with the screening, because there are neighbors across that railroad right-of-way who, that's their backyard. So the screening, whether it be a fence, like we talked, or show on the drawing, or landscape screening, I think it's reasonable to ask for that.
Is there any comments from would you like to say anything?
Yeah,
I would, Edwin Eaton.
If you could.
you got it sworn in.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I live in one of the adjacent properties directly behind. You want me to say?
Yeah, if you just
Yeah.
come up to the podium.
And give your name and address, please.
Edwin Eaton, 525 Pierce Street. I live directly behind the Millennium's property. We were concerned with the variance of distance behind their existing property is what I read in the notice that we received, and the fence. So we were just in question of what type of fence and what type of rear variance that they were being given, and in basically how much closer they would be to our property in their storage.
The rear is, they're gonna be within 5 feet, or the variance, the setback is 10. They were gonna be on the line on the rear, and the fence, they wouldn't really need a variance for a chain link fence on a industrial property on the rear.
Because it backs up to railroad right away.
Right.
Right.
What is the railroad right-of-way?
Width-wise,
Yes.
oh, it's either 50 or 100 feet in width.
Okay. in which to 50 feet from the railroad to the edge of their property?
It's 50 feet well, if it's 50 feet, it's from your property line to their property line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're,
In which
go
they,
ahead.
I'm sorry, in which
Go
they
ahead.
would be extending that back to where it would only be a 45-foot?
No, they won't be not closer than 50.
Okay.
Because then they'd be into the railroad. So they won't be over the property line.
Right. Any other comments you'd like to make?
Just I guess a request for a property fence in the rear that is similar to Autobahn's chain link fence with screening to cover the industrial property is what I would request.
Okay. All right, we'll make note of that. Roger, you made a comment that you would request that they did do something like that, right?
Right. I mean, that's what the application,
Right.
just because there are neighbors back there. I mean, they're not directly there, but they're close enough that they probably should do something there.
Right. Okay. Are you willing to do that?
Install a chain link fence.
Well, or it could be shrubs or something like that, right, Roger? Or is it being
Yeah, either one of them would work. If it's going to be screening for shrubs, it's not landscaping, it'll be screening, which will be considerably denser than
Right.
just landscaping treatment.
And you're familiar with that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would you be willing to put that in our,
I guess, is that a requirement to have a chain link?
It could be a requirement from this group.
Okay. I mean, yeah, if in order to get the variance up front, on the front right-of-way, as far as the setback off of Main Street, I mean, we'd definitely be willing to put a sight screen. Now, whether that's, again, evergreens along the backside there, or I have not, is the Autobahn one, is that a 6 foot? I don't,
No, it's taller than that.
it's like an 8 foot, I think.
It's an 8 or 10.
It sounds like-
Back property.
yeah, we
Stay
could do,
consistent to what's down the rest of that line of property all the way to the interstate.
Yeah, I think because Autobahn has that, and I think everybody else to the south, there is no screening on anything, any other properties back to the south.
Roger, are you saying he needs a chain link or he does not in the back?
Well, it was on their drawing
Okay.
as they submitted to you.
Okay,
And that was part of my consideration, since there are neighbors back there, that there should be
Right.
something there, not just nothing. Be it a fence or be it landscape screening, I guess I would be fine with either one.
either one? Okay. Which one would you prefer? Or could you do?
Well, we're leaning towards the landscape up front, the landscape screening. So I would think in order to, again, on the backside, it might be more visually appealing to the
Right.
neighbors. Obviously, if you're looking at a chain link versus if you're looking at a row of shrubs.
Right. Now, when we talk about landscape, don't we need a height at least to start with?
They'd be a minimum of 5 foot
Okay,
at the time of planting.
all right.
Right.
Now, what about in front? Would you gonna do landscaping out there, or are you gonna do?
Yeah, there's going to be some additional, we haven't got everything, the final plans put together for achieving the landscaping points, but, that was definitely the consideration of planning, landscaping out front as well.
Are you gonna do that instead of a chain link, or you wanna just chain link out front? I guess.
If we're all right with the landscape, in which our earlier conversation today was, thought, and kind of with some of the comments tonight was that might actually look a little better.
Yeah.
Right,
We're fine with, to go with landscape site screen.
okay. We need to
Yeah.
make that all, change in our variance to have landscaping then, okay?
Okay.
All right, and you're agreeable. All right, any other comments? Do you have any other further comment? No, okay. Do you have anything else you wish to say?
I guess the one, The one question I have is, in talking with other neighbors, there is an opportunity that apparently through the railroad, you can actually rent part of their right-of-way. I believe the neighbors to the south are doing that currently, where for a couple $100 a year, I mean, the numbers, I haven't spoke with the railroad, but the neighbors to the south, Mr. Lang, he's actually renting some of that property, whereas I think, the 50-foot railroad right-of-way that's all the way across there, you can rent another 10 or 15 foot into that. They want to say you can't get any closer than 10 feet within our railroad tracks, but we'll rent you that additional to use. If that's being done, I guess with a sight screen being put along the back, if there's an opportunity to use some of the railroad and actually rent that from them and have an agreement, I guess I don't know where that stands.
How do we view that, Roger? Because we wouldn't have any control over the railroad.
Well, and there's then we're going beyond the property line.
Right.
It's your suggestion, just to make sure I understand what you're asking. Are you asking if you can put your sight screen, if the board would be agreeable to your sight screen being placed on the railroad right of way, or if you could?
Well, I would have to get that permission from the railroad. I mean, because it would just be like renting two adjacent property, renting the adjacent property and using it. If we're going to place a sight screen on our right of way or on our property line at the back, that kind of eliminates the opportunity to then rent the next piece, to go over onto the railroad.
On the rear right now, where you're proposing this new lot, this new gravel lot, is it, looking at your drawing, it looks like it lines up on the same angle as where that blacktop ends? The existing blacktop, right? You're keeping that line? Is that the case? So, if you rented that space from the railroad, you'd be going beyond that and, right?
Another
There's
20
right.
or so feet.
But your asphalt lane doesn't go back onto railroad property at all?
It cuts like right to the property line.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I guess, listening to this, the conclusion I draw, and I think may be before the Zoning Board of Appeals, is that they don't control they don't have a lease for the railroad land. At this point, it seems to me you can only act on what is in this application.
Right.
So, as I interpret it, if there's intent to lease the railroad property, then they would have to execute that lease, and once they hold the lease, then they could come back for a further variance. But I don't see how it's possible to provide some status of limbo between now and then. I mean, legally, we can only approve what is, I think, what the land that we can control.
Right. I think that you're right. All we can do is vote on what we know at this point. So if you do something like that in the future, then we're going to have to be notified.
Dr. Chairman, would
Yes.
it be better to delay this vote tonight until they get a more accurate description of what they want to do? There's a lot of ifs, ands, and ors here.
That would delay you another month.
But I don't think,
It could
I
take
mean,
forever.
even if he does lease that property, we can't grant a variance on that property because he doesn't
No.
own it.
Right.
The variance goes with the property, correct?
Right.
So the railroad would have to
The
come in
railroad
and
would
have to
have-
ask for the variance.
Yeah, they'd have to have a lease
Right.
and then have the railroad as a partner saying, we want this variance.
Right.
Right. I think we should vote on what we have tonight, and if there's further developments down the road, then we'll have to discuss that at that time. Right?
Yeah, so I guess our final stance is we're applying for a variance on the frontage setback. There really isn't anything saying that there has to be a sight screen in the back. Whether it's a chain link, an open chain link, if we would decide to put that for security reasons, but there isn't anything that says it has to be a sight screen in the back.
Well, we're asking that.
Right, and so in order to grant that up front, if that's what it takes, we really need to do this for our business. So if that's what it takes, then yes, we'll put a sight screen in the back.
Okay.
To clarify the request, Roger, am I right? the request is for variance in a front, side, and rear setback.
Yes.
So you're asking for a setback on all sides, not just the front. And so that's the question before the board as opposed to just the front.
Okay.
Right. So we're approving all three of those at this time, and we're requesting landscaping in the front and the back, rather than chain link fence, or it can be put in also, but a minimum of the landscaping.
Okay.
So we're all on the same page. Okay. I need a request, or you have further comment?
Well, I sometimes when these.
You want to do it separate?
Well, no, I had a suggestion possibly for wording for your motion.
Okay.
If you were wondering how to tie everything we talked about together.
Yes.
You may wish to move to approve the variance in case number 1401 as presented, with a recommendation that the grant of the variance be conditioned upon screening, whether landscape screening or fencing in the front and rear of the property,
Well,
if that's what you said.
yeah, we actually want landscaping,
Yeah, I think we need to.
not or screening. We want landscaping in front and back. So we can word it like that, but we want to make sure that the landscaping is a requirement. Okay? Everyone got that? So I'll need a request from somebody on the board.
I'll give it a try.
Okay, Bill's going to try, all right.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we grant case number 1401 under section 1010-2C of the Village Code with the restrictions of landscape screening on the front and rear of the property.
Yes.
Did I leave anything out?
Second.
Morton,
Yes.
Betteridge,
Yes.
Offerly,
Yes.
Shook,
Yes.
Spar.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, we have further comment, Mr. Newhouse, Roger?
Nothing for me tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
I appreciate your clarification, so we can move on. Okay.
Glad to help.
Anything?
I'd introduce our mayor.
Well, that's right.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, would you like to make a comment tonight? I'm sorry I didn't introduce you earlier. We had an interesting case, so I'm glad you were here. Any further comments? None? Call a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Got to call it.
Oh,
All in favor?
all in favor, yes.
All opposed? You can do a voice vote on it.
Yeah, aye. We're all ayes. Everybody say aye.
Aye.
Am I reading the names?
You can do a voice vote to adjourn if you want.
Okay.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All
Opposed?
opposed? Thank you.
Aye.